Hello and welcome to the Matt's Movie Reviews Saturday Conversation Show, a weekly interview series where I talk to entertainment media personalities and content creators about their work and love of movies. Today's guest is Theresa Campagna, an independent filmmaker and YouTuber whose channel, Jester Bell, has over 10,000 subscribers and features commentary on the state of superhero movies and the comic book industry. And Theresa, I was going to say, we're just talking off the air just now, how much I'm a big fan of your work, and I'm just so thrilled to have you today on a Saturday Conversation series. Thank you so very much for that.
You're welcome. I'm glad to be here.
So I was doing a bunch of research over you over the last few weeks or so. It's really interesting. Sometimes when I talk to content creators or movie lovers, there's like a moment in their lives where a certain thing, a movie, a comic book, a book, whatever, kind of grabs them and kind of like draws them into this world, the passion that they love. For me, there was a movie called Serpico, which I watched back maybe 20 years or so ago. For you, from what I understand, it was the first time you picked up a Batman comic when you were 15 or so. Is that pretty much correct? Is that the kind of thing that really sprungboard you into kind of like that world, into that type of art and your passion for that type of comic book and comic book character?
Well, if I understand you correctly in terms of what started my passion for this stuff, I talked a little bit about this in my video about the MCU, why I stopped caring about the MCU, talking about my feelings on it now. But my whole start with that was actually a movie that got me into both comic books and movies. Like I had always been into movies,
Yeah.
but it was like almost a subconscious thing where it wasn't until my brother took me to the first Avengers, and we didn't see
Okay.
it in the theater because I didn't even know about any of that stuff. But my brother took me to a screening, like this cafe had license to play movies there, and they would play them for free for everybody. And so he took me into this cafe that was going to be screening this movie on a big projector. It was going to be the Avengers, and it was packed. But I had never known of this comic book world before. And so we went to this movie, me and my brother, and I was just, my mind was blown. Like I had always been into like Star Wars and Lord of the Rings and the fantasy genre, but
Mm.
my mind was blown away by all that they were able to do in this sci-fi superhero movie, all that they were able to do with the superhero characters, this sort of idea of these very, very human characters who have to put aside their flaws to try to become something greater together. And all of the, even the sound design, how they would do Iron Man and how they would have the powers interact, just so many elements of this film. And it kind of is what started me on a big journey of just realizing how much I love movies and what movies could be. And also eventually getting me into comics. And it didn't happen overnight because I started really taking the deep dive into comics a couple years later. That was in 2012. In 2014, I remember I started reading comics. I started with Marvel. It was actually kind of difficult to get into at first because it was like learning to reread
Mm.
almost to understand like how the graphic novel format. But I got into Marvel, and then that eventually led me to getting into Batman. Batman actually happened when I was taking a little bit of a break from Marvel, and I started to look into like other comic book characters and really, really getting into Batman. But similarly, like the filmmaking journey is a little bit similar. That the Avengers made me realize just how much movies were my thing, and eventually wanted me to take the deep dive in becoming a filmmaker myself, even though I thought that that was impossible. And so it took me a couple years to say, like, no, that's going to be like the main thing that I'm going to do. I'm going to do filmmaking. And so it was really the Avengers, that first movie, that brought me into all of this.
When I look at your videos, a character that pops up more consistently than others is Harley Quinn. You
Mhm.
have done a lot of videos on her. You're very knowledgeable about the character, different storylines. When did you come across her? Was it just when you were doing like the Batman comics, or was the first Batman comic, did it feature her, or did she come around a little later?
Well, funnily enough, she is what got me into Batman because I heard about this. I had heard things about Batman. Like I had an understanding of who the Joker's character was. I hadn't actually watched anything. I hadn't even seen The Dark Knight yet. I think my parents thought that movie would be too scary when I was younger or something. There is violence and stuff. I love that movie now.
Mm.
But anyway, I saw a cover. It was a magazine cover, and it was someone doing a Harley Quinn cosplay with the Joker. And I think it was someone trying to recreate that iconic Alex Ross pose, if you're familiar with that. But anyway, that kind of made me question, oh, the Joker has a love interest? Like, what's that? And I'm like, that just sounds like such a strange idea because I know how violent that character is. I'm like, so what, how do they play it out? And so I really I discovered the character through, I looked up clips of Batman the Animated Series, and I was really just drawn into, because I talk about this a lot, and just to get ahead of myself a little bit, this Harley is very, very influential of how I see character writing and how I see female characters, because through most of my life, I feel that female characters, like the peak of what a female character to be, was always considered the female action hero, the strong female character, the feminist heroine. And I'd kind of just been force fed that my entire life, and I thought, yeah, that's the kind of character that female characters should be. That's the peak. And of course, there are good like female action heroes and role models and all that I still enjoy, but she really introduced me to a character who is very vulnerable and like really helped me. Actually, I won't no TMI here, but for some of the things I was going through right then as a high schooler, like I would say that that character helped me more than any other character ever, because it allowed me to sort of empathize and realize things about myself that I wouldn't have if I was just being fed, like, you know, the strong, just be strong, you know, that message constantly. It made me actually realize some of my own behaviors that was a problem, because I saw them in her, and I saw that where that was leading her, you know, on a smaller scale, on a small real
Of
scale.
course. Yeah.
But so, and you know, I've talked a lot, I'm sure you've watched videos about how that character kind of got sucked in to the mindset of, oh, she needs to be strong and independent. And I hope that that maybe explains myself a little bit about why I'm so passionate about what the original character was meant to be and how she's gone off the rails, because not only for what it means for me personally, but also about female characters and any character in general, about how important it is to have vulnerable characters, and how important it is to have the sad ending or the cautionary tales out there. So that really has brought me to become sort of a scholar of the character and know wherever she's been. And once again, she's very, very influential of how I look at female characters, especially these days. So, and my channel is named after her because she became
Hmm.
my favorite comic book character. Jester Bell. Some people ask me where that name came from. It was actually on a Wikipedia page, because somebody said that they imagined, you know, Harley should get in a relationship with the character from Hunchback of Notre Dame. I can't remember his name. And they named it
Quasimodo.
Jester Bells. Yeah, and no, not Quasimodo. In the Disney version, there's like this jester character that sings. I
Right.
can't
Okay.
can't remember, but they said we'll name them Jester Bells. And I'm like, I don't well, I don't like that ship idea, but I like the name Jester Bell, so I took that and I made that my YouTube title.
Um, a lot of people, their introduction, especially like the more outside the comic book world, to Harley Quinn is the Margot Robbie kind of variations of her in the movie Suicide Squad, etc. What was your reaction to her? She's done it three times now, right? There's a two
Mm-hmm.
Suicide Squads, and I totally forgot the name of the other movie she did because I haven't watched it, and I
Birds
know a
of
lot of people
Prey.
did. Thank you. What's your kind of take on how she has approached the character, and do you think her approach to the character has changed the way that the comic book writers have approached a comic book character in a comic book world? Because sometimes that does happen. Like when Michael Keaton did Batman, I've noticed at that time that the Batman in the comic books like kind of following the lead of the cinematic version, so the other way around. Is that something that's happened with Harley Quinn with the whole Margot Robbie experience?
Well, actually, with Harley, I would say that the comic books have been the worst influence on the character ever.
Hmm.
I think that everything bad that's happened with her started with the comics, because you have to remember she started in Batman the Animated Series. She was not a comic book character, so she's like kind of the reverse. You know how
Hmm.
movies can sometimes come back and influence the comics, but in this case, it was sort of the comics coming to influence the other stuff. For the first film, if you go back, and here's the thing, I was like 100% on Margot Robbie's side as the casting of the character in 2016. I am not saying that Suicide Squad was a good movie. I'm not saying that she had good writing in that movie. In terms of what she chose to do with her performance, though, like even if you watch interviews of the old Suicide Squad, I was amazed because I was looking them up to do a video on DC at Large recently, or maybe it
Hmm.
was a couple months ago, but I was amazed because if you watch her interviews for Suicide Squad, she really gets into like, little nuances and things she wants to bring out in the character, and she's very detailed. And that's what I liked about the movie, not because it had objectively a good story, but there were moments like when she kind of blows up in the bar and is like, people like us don't get normal. I'm like, here I'm seeing the potential where you can have a lot of depth and show the sort of paradox of the character. Like, she's crazy, she's done these terrible things, but there's like still a person maybe left inside of her that recognizes how far she's fallen. And I'm like, there is the potential where you could do something with this. And I thought that she did the attitude okay. She was a bit more sexualized in that movie, a bit more violent, but like, I thought the potential is there. But then for Birds, like, I don't know, like, there's so much that I'm confused by, because it's like Margot Robbie either did not have a perception of the character that I thought, or she didn't understand the character as much as I did, or as I thought she did, because there were these comics that came out in the mid 2010s that basically took everything Harley was and turned her into Deadpool. That's not even exaggerating. Like, they literally said in a book that I have that is about the history of the character, the writer admits, we wanted to compete with Deadpool from Marvel because he was selling so well, and somebody suggested use Harley Quinn for that. So they changed the character completely just to mimic off of this style of humor that Deadpool has, and other influences, like wanting to make her, every popular female character has to be a feminist icon. There's other influences, of course, but they changed the character there, and that's what I see Margot Robbie do in Birds of Prey. Like, she's trying to be Ryan Reynolds, and she strips away all the nuances that I saw in the first movie and just plays the character very one note. And she even like pitches her voice to be even more nasally, and it's just like, at that point I'm like, I can't trust that this person actually understands the character. And she was the driving force behind that movie getting made. She was a producer. She had final say on the director. And at that, I think that looking back on those three movies, each individual movie, Suicide Squad, Birds of Prey, and The Suicide Squad, kind of portrays a different character each time. But none of them, even though I thought the first one showed potential, it's like none of them really give her much depth. They never really nail her. And so it's like, I just want to move on from those movies. And I've always constantly argued with people. I don't think that I think that Margot Robbie does a great job in her other performances, but I just don't think that she was actually the right person to portray the character.
So let's do a little segue here now to a little game I like to play called Choose Between Two. So I'm going to give you pretty simple two choices based on the subject. You're going to choose which one, and can I explain your decision for me? Are you ready to play it?
Mm-hmm.
Here we go. Best cinema Joker, Heath Ledger or Joaquin Phoenix?
Heath Ledger, definitely. I don't know if you want me to expand on that, but
Yes, please.
Heath Ledger, I think people don't give him enough credit. I think that he did nail all the aspects of the Joker's character, even if it was done with a more realistic edge to it. The obsession with Batman, the philosophy or lack thereof, the violence of the character. I think he just nailed all of that. The mystery, he just has an energy to him where you don't know much about this character, and he's pretty repulsive, but at the same time, you can't take your eyes off of the screen. And that really brings, and again, something from the comics where the Joker is supposed to be this character who inspires like very strong emotions from people. And that's why I just think that Heath Ledger, if I were to be honest, is the best performance I've ever seen in anything.
Mhm.
I know that that sounds like hyperbolic, and people just like really, really hype up Heath Ledger's Joker to the point where it gets a little tiresome to others. But Heath Ledger is like, I cannot compare him to any other. And I've seen a lot of amazing performances, but it's like he's doing something on a whole nother level where I'm seeing so much to this character that he's crafted. I'm not seeing him at all. He's gone, and there is just this character that you want to know more about, even though you're not given that. And so that's why, like, Joaquin Phoenix did a wonderful job, but he has a very like, I don't know if objective performance is the right word, but it's like, everything about Arthur Fleck, that character, and you know what he's all about. But it's like Heath Ledger is like, you constantly know there's more. You constantly want to watch him, and just to get like all the little ticks and all the little things he does and discuss this character. So that's why Heath Ledger, I think, is the best Joker.
Something I just wanted to ask as well, just to follow on from that. The first Joker that I saw the first Batman in cinemas when it came out, the Tim Burton. Batman with Jack Nicholson, and that was the first time I was kind of introduced to that character. So for myself and a lot of people in our generation, we have really fond memories of that Jack Nicholson. As the years have progressed and other generations have watched Heath Ledger do his thing and Joaquin Phoenix do his thing, I think a lot of people, especially of younger generations, such as yourself, might look at the Jack Nicholson thing as more of a kind of like Jack Nicholson being Jack Nicholson, not so much a
Yeah.
performance as much a reflection of his own personality. Is that something that you think of when you see that Joker performance from Jack Nicholson?
Yeah, that actually is exactly how I reacted to it. And to be honest, like I knew that I would be having these unpopular opinions coming into the comic book space, but you know what really got me into comic book movies, in addition to like all the fun stuff, is like the depth that I saw from like Batman Begins and from the Avengers, Iron Man's character. I love the depth of the character. I actually don't get that really watching the Christopher Reeve Superman or the Batman movies from Tim Burton, because I feel like they were looking at it through more the perspective of like the golden age comic books and like
Mm.
the comic book characters as icons more than like these three-dimensional characters, if that makes any sense. And so you know, I think that it would have been different for people watching Jack Nicholson because there were very, very different Joker voices back then. And I think that it would be different for them coming in and just watching Jack Nicholson play the Joker. I think that he probably seemed like an obvious choice,
Yeah.
because you know I watch like Jack Torrance in The Shining, and he's got Joker in him, and so you
Mm.
can't deny that even just Jack Nicholson doing his thing is very much the Joker. But then we had Mark Hamill after that, who really really defined the character, and so we had like I even can see some of Mark Hamill in how you know, the sort of tenor in Heath Ledger's voice. So we just had very, very different versions of the Joker after that that were defined by more high-pitched clowny voice, and you know, Jack Nicholson's voice is very deep. So there were just various things that I think really changed the iconography of the character, and why younger people like me might look back and not really be into his version. So I guess that's my answer to that question.
Next one. Sticking with superhero movies. Now, we both know where the DCEU and the MCU is at right now, very much at a low ebb crossroads situation. So, for my next question, which do you think has the more promising cinematic future, the DCEU under James Gunn or the next phase of the MCU?
That is a tough question because I'm not really sure what the next phase of the MCU is. Because, like, I know that they have a Captain America 4 film that is really messed up and that they're going to try to paste together. Um, I don't, I don't know if they're going to actually commit to going forward with something like Thunderbolts. And I don't know how many of these films that they had on their slate. I don't know if the next Avengers movie is going to happen. The next
Mm.
Avengers movie was going to be about Kang. So I don't know if they're going to do that. Like, I think throughout the next year we're probably going to get more of an idea, and I think that we're probably going to see a giant shift in their plans. I think that they will try to do Fantastic Four. I'm wondering, and I was considering doing a video about this, if they might pivot to X-Men and try to use that to save it. So that's just a big question mark for me, because in terms of looking at like DC and Marvel, I might say like anyone would have an argument. I might say Marvel just because up to this point they did have a great track record, and now they've just gone really really wayward and they have to find their way back. With DC, they have a horrible track record. I agree with people who say that I think James Gunn is very overrated, as like he's been put on a status of like this prolific not even an auteur director, but just like this A-lister director. But the is that he did mid-budget horror films and then he did Guardians of the Galaxy, and that's all he's done. Like even the Suicide Squad I consider just sort of DC Guardians of the Galaxy. So I was like so shocked and taken aback by the fact that he would get a job as a CEO. And I have a friend who has connections in Hollywood who said, yeah, I was hearing from a guy who used to be a Disney CEO or a Disney executive or something, and he said that it was completely shocking and unprecedented to see the role of a CEO given to someone with no experience like that, someone like James Gunn. But even, you know, like Steven Spielberg had a very prolific career as a producer, so it can happen. But Spielberg, I would consider on a totally different level than
Oh
James
yeah,
Gunn in
yeah.
terms of like where the different hats he was able to wear. And James Gunn just has very, very specific tastes, and I just have not been. I'm willing to see, like, I'm curious enough to see what Superman Legacy is, and like getting a traditional Superman movie. But beyond that, it's like I don't like what he's doing with Batman. Right now, it looks like we might actually be canceling the Batman universe, except for the Penguin, which is already in production. There is evidence to suggest that the Batman 2 will not happen. They don't even have a
Mm.
script yet. All of his plans, apart from Superman Legacy, is what he's always done. It's always D-list characters and obscure storylines and like Swamp Thing, Booster Gold, or a Supergirl movie, but it's going to be from a Tom King comic, which is a very controversial writer. We've got writers who working at DC now who were not helping it before, like Christina Hodson, who did Birds of Prey, Batgirl, who had a lot of behind the scenes stuff, The Flash. It's like I don't really see actual change, and something that really frustrates me with James Gunn, and I think has actually dampened my faith in him, is he's like constantly defending himself to people online. And I'm like, let your work, I think that if you're a CEO, you should be more professional. You should not like, say what you will about Kevin Feige or Bob Iger, but they are not sitting on Twitter arguing with people and
Mm.
trying to like dunk on people. And I just think that it's very unprofessional for James Gunn to do that. And it's created a lot of distrust because he loves to hide in like half truths and the minutia of words, and like saying things like, I did not boot Gal, Wonder Woman, obviously, but she's not coming back. So, or that he did not fire Henry Cavill, he just was never hired. And I'm not even a
Mm.
person who really had a stake in Henry Cavill Superman, but I'm just saying that he is constantly hiding in these words. Even the Batman 2 part 2 thing seems like him, just doing a bait and switch, saying that they're going to make something and then potentially not even making it. And like I will say that I think that he is responsible for the past 4 films that flopped this year, because he came out and said that they didn't matter, and that
Mm.
definitely had something to do with it. And so it's like we are seeing some of his work as a CEO. And so even if like Superman Legacy happens to turn out, I'm like, I still don't have any faith in this future that he's got planned. And if that movie is successful, that seems like the future we're going to get. So I almost want to say I have more faith in Marvel right now, because they do have a track record of some success. It's just that they've gotten really, really, really off track. Like I think that if they completely cleaned house and started fresh with some X-Men stuff and made that really good, then they could get that. But with DC, I'm wondering if them hiring James Gunn is just a more of their crazy shenanigans where they can't get anything right.
Yeah, it's in, yeah, no, and not speaking about the whole James Gunn Twitter thing, it seems like a lot of insecurity as well, which is what you don't want, right? You want someone to
Yeah.
be on top of their game. And I look, I am a fan of James Gunn stuff, but I was very surprised as well in regards to the whole situation, him taking control of the DCEU. But I guess, as I say, the future, we're going to find out. The future is going to tell us what's going to happen. Next
Mhm.
one, streaming or physical media?
I think that there's definitely a benefit to streaming. It's very convenient to have a lot of things there, but I'm a physical media person. I don't like it when I want to watch a movie and it'll be gone. Even entire shows will just be gone randomly. I like to feel like I have something. I don't like it when for example, I was finally giving a chance to The Notebook, because that's a like I'm like, okay, people say it's cheesy, people say it's good. I'm gonna just give it a chance. And I didn't like the ending because I'm like, wasn't there supposed to be a scene at the end? And they cut a scene from the end of the movie. I was watching this on Max. If you've seen the film, Ryan
Mm.
Gosling, the character who he's playing, the older version, goes and lays down next to his wife. And then there's supposed to be a scene where the what is it? The nurse comes in and sees that they've both died together, and then it like cuts to some birds flying away, which is a reference. The Max version cut out the scene where the nurse comes in and sees them, so the movie just
Mm.
ends. And I'm like, what kind of an ending was that? And I looked online and I was like, they cut out a scene from the movie, and it was really inexplicable to me. I'm like, if they have the rights to this, then why are they cutting out scenes so that I'm missing parts of the movie that would have like literally resolved the movie? And like there's been other cases, like, sometimes content has been cut out, like in Back to the Future 2, when it was on Netflix, they cut out scenes of Marty finding a like a pinup calendar, which you can understand, like maybe for content reasons. Other times I just see it happening for literally no reason. Scenes are missing from shows. And even when it comes to content, though, I don't like when these movies can like be edited, and like I might even be watching a new movie and not even realize that it's edited. And so that's why it's very important for me to like have physical media on hand, especially, Blu-rays are they kind of just don't break. I mean, they can, but I in fact find it very important to collect these movies because there are even like my brother bought a movie for Christmas that was from Disney that they have never put on streaming, and they have never printed it on Blu-ray. They did it on DVD, and that's it. They never remastered it or anything. So I consider physical media very important to keep these films from being lost.
I agree as well. And speaking of like what you're talking before about censorship and editing of movies, one of my favorite movies of all time is The French Connection. It was a Gene Hackman film directed by William
Hmm.
Friedkin, came out in the 70s. And I got that on DVD when 20th Century Fox was distributing it. And now that Disney has the rights to it, they've actually like dubbed lines in the film. Like the main character that Gene Hackman plays is a racist in the movie, so he says some things, but they took that stuff out or they replaced it with different words, which just goes against what the character wrote and the screen and the guy who wrote the movie as well. It's like taking someone's painting and saying, I don't like the nude that's showing here, so I'm gonna put some clothes on this person or something like that. It's like same kind of thing. You've got to leave the artist's interpretation as it is. If you don't like it, then don't buy the rights to it. That's kind of like my thing in regards to it.
Yeah,
Um,
I think if I could just add one more thing to that, I think if you are a streaming service and with content, because they used to do this when things would air on cable, then I think there you might have a little bit of say to say like, well, this is up there for public, kids can watch whatever this is, and so we have the right to edit this if we so choose, just like on cable. I think that number one, you need to put a disclaimer that the movie has been edited on there. And I think that they should always be available on physical media. I don't think that you have the right to erase someone's work,
mm,
especially if you're trying to erase something from the past. Because you don't want to deny there were racists in the past, and even like it could be teaching like how people would talk in the past and what was like acceptable. Like we had so many cartoons from early days when I was younger, and there would be like racial caricatures of black
mhm.
people. But instead of censoring all of those, like my mom just kind of waited for me to ask questions about it. And I asked her, like, why are black people portrayed like this in these cartoons? And she was able to explain to me like what it was back then, how that was seen as acceptable, the negative depictions of black people. So it can be a good thing to learn from the mistakes of the past. And like I would recommend people watch the Censored 11, those cartoons. You want to see some actual racism, you can see there, and why these were censored. But like it does not help to like try to whitewash the past like that.
No, absolutely not. Last one of the choose between two. You go to the cinema, are you having popcorn or candy?
Well, it always depends. I don't know. I usually get a drink actually. I
Hmm.
like having a drink the best. I think popcorn is just kind of the thing that you're supposed to get. So, but sometimes like I get too full from popcorn. So, I think I'll just say popcorn though, because that's like the thing that movie theaters are famous for. My sister even got me like this popcorn bag. It's a purse, but it's shaped as popcorn to take to the movies. So I'm gonna go with popcorn.
So you can actually like open up that bag, throw your popcorn in there, like
Oh, I wouldn't
you
want to
pay
do
for the
that. I
weight
would
or
make it
something.
really dirty. I would get really
Yeah.
dirty. It's like made of cloth, so I wouldn't want to do that.
Okay. All right. I'll just double check it. All right. I want to talk about the Jester Bell YouTube channel. So
Hmm.
2017, from what I remember, I got in my notes here, was when you put your first video up. When you started Jester Bell, what was your motivation? What was your kind of like aim? What were you trying to put out there? Was it more to do with you want to put yourself out there as an artist, as a short filmmaker, or did you know that you wanted to also touch a lot of these kind of pop culture, comic book kind of commentary ideas as well? Because it's really interesting how sometimes people start a channel and it kind of evolves into something else over the years.
Well, I actually did not start my channel Jester Bell with the intention of it being a channel. I used to just have being a YouTuber as a fantasy in my head, but never was confident enough to try it. When I was 17 and 18, I did some, silly videos because I wanted to be a filmmaker, a videographer. I would just did very silly videos on an iPhone, and I just uploaded them there for storage and to share to my friends. And then I was off YouTube for a couple years completely because I was in college. Horrible experience in college. I will not get into that now. When I got out of that, I was just recovering from the experience. I only went to college for 2 years. I was recovering from that. I was looking for a job just to pay the bills. I was still continuing on wanting to be a filmmaker and all of that. And so I just one day I'm like, I'm trying to get myself back on track after this. I'm trying to find out what I want to do. And like, why not start posting my opinions to YouTube like I always thought? And, I started talking about comics. I started talking about movies. And I started getting back into short filmmaking like I had been doing when I was 17, 18. And I just, I didn't have money at the time. I would just do stuff on my iPod. I bought like a very old used camera. And now I have a professional camera, which I'm working on a short film now with that. It's taken me a while to get here. But I was just trying to save money from my job at the time, and which was making a lot more. I never expected to be making anything of YouTube. And I have not revealed this to anyone before, but at one point that job got so bad I had to quit. And that was the time when I had to regroup again. And it had been a very hard years of me going through a bad college experience, going through COVID, going through that job. And so that is when I started rigorously and posting to YouTube and fighting. Because once again, I just did not put any effort into my videos. I'm like, this is just for me to feel like I put my thoughts out there. It was not me trying to build anything big. It was not me expecting I would ever be able to build anything at all. I never thought I'd be able to monetize. But so I wasn't putting any effort into it. And I'd be working a lot. So I would go for like 2 months at a time not posting because I'd be so tired of being on my feet all the time. And so, but this was a point where I didn't have a job. And I did not want to go back into like retail fast food work. I was working fast food work, anything but that. And I'm like, I just want to be a filmmaker, actor, media creator, like I always wanted to be. And so I started just fighting to get this YouTube channel working. And I had some savings. I worked from Premiere Pro. I started learning that. I started just continuing to dive into my filmmaking, posting short films, posting videos, but trying harder and harder. And I started to get some leeway. I went from having videos that would just get like 500 views at best to getting one that did 10,000 views. I started to talk to other people. I was able to monetize by the end of the year, which I thought would never happen. And then this year it was much experimentation. First I did a video called Why I Stopped Caring About Star Wars, which was my first to get almost 60,000. Then I started to say, like, maybe there's something here. And then it was a kind of a rough summer where some videos would do well, some wouldn't. And then finally, through the next half of the year, I started to finally figure out these thumbnails pick up, these words pick up, this kind of video picks up. And so I started to really, really understand how to get videos to pick up on the algorithm and actually get seen. And so it finally brought to a point where I'm finally doing this, and I'm finally having this as my job. And like, it's crazy. And I would say that God had a lot to do with this, because I had never even imagined even getting this far. And so now I'm at a position where I'm running the channel, and it's a lot of work to keep videos up. I got a new script that I'm writing for a big video. I'm also working on a short film, but I'm so blessed to have this channel because it's allowed me so that I can 100% focus on things that contribute to filmmaking. Because, lighting a video and seeing what different kinds of setups in your background work, and editing with Premiere Pro, all of that, talking on camera, all of that helps with filmmaking. So
Yeah.
that's my big goal for this year. Is I got the channel set up, and I'm going to keep running it. And while I'm doing that, I'm also working on my scripts and working on my filmmaking still, and always trying to get better. And as I finally picked off with YouTube, I'm like, maybe I can finally pick it up with filmmaking.
Amongst all of the commentary stuff you have, you have your short films on there as well. And I've got to say, I'm really impressive work there with the short films. I mean, some of my favorites I saw was Dummy in the Window, The
Mm-hmm.
Quack, and the sequel, The Quackening as well. I think the one though that really resonated with me, and a lot of people as well, if the numbers are anything to go by, is the short film Alone. That is something right there that I think really shows, really, number one, great concept. Number two, your how comfortable you are on screen in that video compared to other ones as well. You really see the progression and the growth. The editing as well, the way to kind of edit that film, because that's like you're dealing with a character there. It's like going in and out of her own kind of like,
Yeah.
delusions, psychosis. But also as a writer, I think the last line in that movie, in that short film, where the line is, "I'm in denial, but I wouldn't want it any other way." I think a lot of people can take from that certain things about their own life. When I watch that myself and I see that line, I watch that thing, to me, what it says to me is that I'm a 40-something-year-old guy. I'm married. I've got 2 kids. I'm trying to make a living as a film critic and a YouTuber. Hey, it might not work, but I'm not going to have it any other way. Sometimes you need to have that kind of like self-confidence. It's kind of like you need to block out the more logical part of your brain and let the creative part kind of take over and really, try to make it work that way. That's something that I resonated from me as well. Have you had people come to you and talk about that line, particularly in that video, and how it has resonated to them? Because like I said, as the numbers show, it's one of your more popular videos and by far your most popular short film as well.
Well, I did get I have a little bit of a complicated relationship with when I post my short films because I'm a very, very, like, for me, as always, talking very critically about movies, I'm very critically of myself because I'm like, here you are, this critic who bashes these movies, who bashes all these things wrong with the industry. Like, how can you put yourself out there and be like, look, what I make is great? So I don't want to be like that. So I think I have a hard time accepting praise because I'm always looking at, oh, but this is wrong, and this is wrong, and this is wrong. And I hear from bigger filmmakers like Martin Scorsese says that he's always like highly, highly critical of everything that he does. And James Cameron is like a perfectionist. But so I think all filmmakers are just very critical with their work. I am surprised that that is the one that really got people because once again, I'm kind of always looking at the flaws and what could have been done better. But I want to share with you a little bit of the history of that short film. It was actually inspired by a Garfield comic strip. I don't know if you knew
Mhm.
this, but there is a Garfield comic strip that really took readers by surprise. And it was where Garfield wakes up one day and his house is destroyed. Everyone's gone. Outside looks like a dystopia. And he can't find, he once deludes himself into thinking someone's there, and then he like just screams, I don't want to be alone, all of a sudden, and then everybody comes back, and it's a very dark comic, and it leaves it ambiguous as to was he just having a nightmare or is he really all alone? And it creates this idea. What I was going for in my short film is almost an adaptation of that, is somebody who is, I'm very, very inspired by Alfred Hitchcock and Twilight Zone in my work, but this idea
Mm.
of somebody who lives in a reality where everything is in their head and this happy life that they have is all in their head, but that the denial is what keeps them going there. And that's why I was trying to communicate things like, she has a mom who a friend of mine played, and but she goes and she sees a balloon with like a wig over it, and she
Yeah.
wonders what is that, and like that is something, implies that it was something like her mom has just been this like mannequin or something or other that she's created. She has a cat, which is my own cat who played that part, but it's actually a stuffed animal and like this like play world that she's created herself in. So I'm surprised to hear like how much it resonated with people, but it definitely encourages me, to go forward with this because I might not have the production budget for, getting these things to look the best, but I do have a bit more confidence in myself as a writer. It's just about, getting the right production together to put that out.
Well, as you and I know, especially from the spate of films that come out in the last couple of years, no matter how big your budget is, it all comes down to the ideas of the film and the execution
Yeah.
of it. Because
Yeah,
we've seen some
absolutely.
big, big stinkers that cost like 200 to $250 million, right? So but yeah, keep going with it, man. I can't wait to see what your next short film is because I absolutely love the work that you're doing there. So please, I encourage you to keep going with it. I want to move on now to some rapid fire questions. We're going to throw some questions to you. You just let me know your answer straight off the top of your head if you can. Ready to rock?
Hmm. Hmm.
Here we go. Best cinema Batman, as in the person who portrayed Batman Bruce Wayne on the movies.
Christian Bale.
Ah, yeah. See, I got a controversial take on Christian Bale. My one is best Bruce Wayne, but he's not my favorite Batman.
Oh,
I like
I
what he does
understand
with
that.
Bruce, because it's the voice. when I
Yeah.
watched The Dark Knight and he had like the whole, I'm not going to do an impersonation, but the voices really put me off. And I kind of understand where he's coming from. But his Bruce Wayne, I really dug because like I love Michael Keaton's Batman, but his Bruce Wayne, I didn't really buy. And to me, I think what Robert Pattinson did actually was the younger version of the character. It was really fantastic. I really liked what he did there as well. Like Christian Bale, awesome.
Hmm.
Next one, pineapple on pizza, yes or no?
No, 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 no. You're insane if you do that. I don't think fruit should be on anything fun. No, no, no strawberries on cake, no nuts. Absolutely no nuts, no pineapple on pizza. No. Fruit
Nope.
separate.
Yep. No raspberries on ice cream, nothing like that. It's just on the side. On the side. Okay. What is this one might take a little bit of time, but what is your favorite comic book storyline? What storyline in a comic book, like an arc or a storyline like that went over like several issues that you really enjoyed?
Over several issues, like I could name lots of one shots for that. That's a little bit hard for me to answer because there's so many that come to mind. Um, uh, oh my goodness, that is a tough question. I mean, in terms of like things that you could collect in a graphic novel, I really love Batman: The Long Halloween.
Hmm.
Um, so many Batman comics that really do a great job. I read a great one this year called Batman and Joker: The Deadly Duo. Last good comic that ever came out. Recently, if you've been following my community posts, I've been really getting into the X-Men, and my favorite character from that is Rogue. And you can just get into so many like good arcs that they did with her, from stealing Captain Marvel's or Carol Danvers' powers, which by the way, perfect setup in the movies right now. No one likes Carol Danvers. Have Rogue steal her powers, get flight and strength. Thank you very much. But you can read that. You can read in the 90s where she kind of comes into her own, and a lot of that about her relationship with Gambit, and just that very well done writing for a relationship in comics, and how the characters challenge each other and challenge each other to change. Um, Dark Phoenix from X-Men, obviously a great run, but it's really hard for me to pick one. Like I could pick, like my favorite comic individually is Batman Mad Love, which was the origin of Harley, as written by her creator Paul Dini. That's my
Mhm.
favorite comic of all time, and any of its reimaginings. Um, but it's hard for me to like pick one arc in comics. And like there's Spider-Man stuff. Like there's like the night Gwen Stacy died, and I know that some of the dialogue is dated and cheesy, but I love reading that one because of thinking about like what it meant for the time to have a superhero fail, to just the groundbreakingness of the time. Because you can almost like, even though some of the dialogue is cheesy, you can almost like feel the shock in the comic still, the fact that they were actually doing that. And so yeah, there's just way too many to choose from for me to really nail it down.
Favorite Disney animated movie?
Mulan.
Ah, Mulan, very
No
good.
question, no question. I've even planned, because I keep saying on my channel I want to do some more positive videos, and I was thinking, well, maybe I'll do a Mulan review this month, and hopefully that'll pick up or something. But like, no question, favorite Disney animated movie.
I love to see that, by the way. I love to see like some Jester Bell recommendations for movies and comic book
Oh
stuff would
yeah,
be awesome.
definitely.
Um, okay, so the next one we can do DCEU and MCU. Favorite superhero movie from either universe.
DCEU, if you're just talking about DC, are you talking about the DCEU or DC movies in general?
Let's go general.
Okay, favorite DC movie, Dark Knight. Favorite Marvel movie. Um, it's a toss up between the Avengers and Infinity War. I'm gonna go with the Avengers because it, like, as I said a little bit earlier, it holds a special place with me. So I'm gonna go with the Avengers.
That's actually one of my like top three favorite, still to this day, favorite superhero movies, The Avengers, because I
Yeah.
collected Avengers comics when I grew up, and to see it all kind of come together on the screen like that, it was just fantastic. Last one. Now, you're a filmmaker. If you could get the chance to write and direct any character in the storyline for that character, which character would it be? Now, I'm going to guess Harley Quinn, but how would you do if it is Harley Quinn? How would you do Harley Quinn on the screen? And what storyline would you pick up from the comics to put onto the screen?
Well, it's funny because I have at both points as a filmmaker, I've thought I would love to work on Batman just to do Harley Quinn, and that if I was doing Marvel, I would love to do X-Men. And like for me, I would like to have my cake and eat it too, to be able to do both of them.
Mm.
But it like so I'll just compartmentalize. Like I would accept either one. Harley is probably the number one just because of how I feel like I'm the only one who understands the character anymore. And what I would do with that is I would it would be just so amazing for me to go back to the character's origins. And I would like to portray her in more than one thing just to do an entire history. But to go back to her origins, and there's a book, and I always say it's not appropriate for all audiences. It's very adult. There's some things I wish they didn't do in it, but it's called Harleen, and it was a mature reimagining of her origins. And it really gets into like who she was before her fall and what broke her mind down, like the fear, the fact that she cut herself off from everyone. She tried to deal with her fears by drinking, and just, this sort of gradual decay of a person. And that is the human, that's like the human element that has been lost to the character. And, just to be able to finally do that and portray that on screen and go, after all these years, and, maybe the Joker sequel, maybe a little bit of humanity will come back to the character, and that we will see. But, there's like a very pivotal moment of the comic where she accidentally kills someone. And she doesn't mean to do it. She's kind of lost her mind at that point, but she didn't actually mean to kill this person. But it's just like the artwork is just incredible in this book about how this was like the breaking moment from all these points in her life, leaving her to just let go of everything. And like, it's just such a tragic thing, but it also resonates about like having all these pressures and just breaking. So I would just love to portray that on screen. And it's very good about how it handles her relationship with the Joker as well. It handles it with a lot of nuance. And so like to just portray all those elements, but to finally depict her on screen and be like, this is what the character is, this is the depth, this is what I've been seeing in her the entire time, would be my number one thing ever. However, if I was also able to do like an X-Men story for Marvel, I was thinking if I was to do X-Men, then I would have a very bright color palette, just like the comics and how they would always use, very loud primary colors. You have that very distinct color palette, not be afraid of any of the comic book elements, and have that kind of tie into how the X-Men need to learn not to be afraid of who they are. Like that, I would really want to get into Rogue's backstory, her relationship with Mystique, and her honing her powers, relationship with Gambit, all of that stuff. And, do other characters too, like Wolverine. I also love Wolverine. So that'd be my second choice.
Last question here for our conversation. 2023 brought a lot of milestones for you in regards to Jester Bell. What do you foresee 2024 being for your YouTube channel? You spoke before about you're writing a script on a new short film. You're doing some more content in regards to commentary on everything else. What do you foresee ahead of you now in a year? I mean, have you kind of like have any goals planned for yourself in regards to where you want to take your YouTube channel going forward?
Yes, I actually mentioned on a stream I was on that I want to do 100,000 subscribers, and that is I'm a tenth of that right now. I think a tenth, but I'd never thought getting 10,000 subscribers was even possible. So I just want to continue to find videos that really pick up. A pipe dream is to finally get a video that does 1 million views, because I have kind of had that trajectory where I'm like, okay, I'm getting 1,000. I just need to get 1,000 views. Okay, now get a video to do 10,000 views. Get a video to do 50,000, get a video to do 100,000. And so I'm kind of setting myself to have that goal of like, find a video that maybe can pick up to do this many views, and then see how that goes. So it's possible. It's a high bar, but that's kind of like whether I get to it or not, that's what I'm striving for. So the channel is just about, finding the right kind of content that can be successful and that also makes me feel good making it. Because sometimes I'll do a video and I'll be like, I did this, like the DC video I did about Aquaman 2. I did it, and a lot of people liked it, but I'm like, but I didn't feel great doing that video because I'm a little bit tired of this topic of the DCEU
Mm.
decline, and a lot of other people are. And so I'm like, but I didn't really feel like I wanted to do that video. And sometimes if it gets a lot of views, then it can compensate for that. But it's about finding a balance between the kind of content that like I feel good about and that also picks up, because I'm like, I wouldn't want to be doing successful videos that I hate making or anything like that.
Mhm.
So that's kind of my goal for the channel. But also, like, this is the year, once again, maybe an impossible task, but I've had this sci-fi horror script that I've been writing for a while. And I'm like, can this be the year that I finally find the people that we can even just begin to getting it made, like making the connections with financiers and people who will be willing to finance it, or people who know crew members, like, can we make this happen somehow? Because, and today I did a video, talking about how 2024 is going to be like a really bleak year for movies, because for even the blockbusters these years, there's all these question marks about how well are they going to do. And somebody was like, you just need to make your own stuff. You just need to make your own stuff. Some people aren't as aware of my filmmaking. I need to promote that a bit more. I've been a little bit insecure about it because, once again, I'm always looking back at the flaws. But I'm like, well, that's what I want to do. I want to get this like indie film. I've written more than one script, but I'm like, I want to get, this is the one I feel most confident in. Want to get it written, made, somehow distributed, and somehow marketed. And like, because I'm thinking ahead, like, if I was to somehow get this made, how would I get it marketed? Because I'm not naive to the fact there are a lot of people out there just like me getting their films made and who might have broad appeal, but the problem is like the bar for like getting these things out there, getting them made, getting them distributed at all. But then how do people know about them? Like there's a lot of good films out there that just have very limited marketing, and so not many people even know about them. Like Godzilla Minus One did very well at the theater for what it was, but it had very little marketing in the US because it was a foreign film. So even though everyone who watched it absolutely loved it, and Godzilla is a big IP, so it should have sold if only it had a little bit more awareness around it. So that's my big goal, is like, can I keep the channel up but also finally jump into filmmaking? And that's important because I recognize that, especially as you're starting out with filmmaking, there's not going to be a ton of money in it. If you get a decent paycheck as a filmmaker, then that's going to be your only paycheck for who knows how long. So it's important to me to also keep the channel running as my main source of income, so that I can and that hopefully these two things can feed back into each other, and that I can make a success with that.
Well, I think that with the quality of your short film so far, it's something that I think you could definitely do. And we have seen over the last several years different YouTubers branch out into feature films and doing great work there. And
Oh yeah,
I
Talk to
can
Me
only
was a new film that came
exactly
out
I
with,
know,
that was
and
made by YouTubers.
that's right, the Raka guys, and I know Chris Stuckman is made a movie now as well. And it's coming out this year, I'm pretty sure. And yeah, I think all I can say is that I really encourage you to move forward with that. Just make it a reality as best you can. Because talking to a lot of independent filmmakers myself, there's always kind of like that thing is like, well, I got this idea, what I'm going to do, or work some shorts, and then I make the big leap. I think you making the big leap is a goal that's really feasible for you, and I hope you really do. Everything comes together, and I really hope that Jester Bell hits that 100,000 mark as well. And for
Oh, thank you so much.
everyone listening out there, you can find Jester Bell, the handle at Real Jester Bell on YouTube. You're also on Twitter and Instagram as well.
Yes.
Our Patreon, you have a Patreon. The links for that I'll have in the show notes down below. I really encourage everyone to check out Theresa's content. I'm a big fan of it, and that's why I had you on the show today, because I really love what you're doing. And I've learned so much as well from the current state of the comic book industry, because I used to collect comic books when I was a kid, when I was a teenager, sorry, but I haven't in a long time. So I'm learning new terms. Like I didn't even know what shipping was, or shippers, until I started watching your videos about Poison Ivy and Harley Quinn. So it's really cool to catch up on all of that stuff. And it was great to talk to you today, Theresa. Thank you so very much for your time, and best of luck with your 2024. Your 2023 has been awesome. I'm sure 2024 is just going to be just as good.
Thank you so much. I enjoyed being on.
Thank you for watching the Matt's Movie Reviews channel. Please subscribe for more reviews, podcast interviews, and exclusive content. Also, if you would like to request a review and support my work, please join my Patreon via the link in the description below.